Hey everyone, it's Tanner from Tier 1. Today we're gonna go over a Stage 1 Plus 68 RFE. This is our bread and butter. This is what all the guys who are running like fleece drop-ins or hot tune stock turbo trucks are gonna run. We're gonna step up to a welded planetary output shaft. We're going to use a machined OD top plate for our added clutches. We step up to a TCS billet input shaft. We're also gonna step up to a fillet 4C retainer. And then we're going to go from a 12 to a 14 clutch count with our machine top plate. We always start with the low reverse drum. It's just the first thing that goes in the transmission case. So we got our low reverse piston pressed in with the return spring. So we're just gonna go ahead and clean up the sprag, reassemble it and put it back in, and then put our clutches in and check our tolerances. We obviously clean everything when we get it, but we don't like taking the sprag apart and putting it in the wash because it has to go back together exactly the same way that it came apart, and you're not going to know if it goes through the wash. So we leave it together in the wash, pull it apart, and then finish cleaning it during assembly. Assembled. Now we'll check our tolerances, make sure we're within spec, and move on to the next piece of the transmission. We remove the old 4C stamp top plate and replace it with this billet one over here, because this on the top part is pretty fragile, and it just, they like to come apart, or they like to bend, or they like to not do what they're supposed to do. Billet is always stronger, more rigid, denser. If this fails or comes apart, like it just shoots all this through the transmission. Unlike the 47s, none of these springs will kill you, so there's no dramatics in this video, unfortunately. Okay, make sure these are good, none of them are burnt. On this, we can't check the 2Cs until it's already in the transmission, but we'll have it stacked out ready to go. Same deal, make sure none of our 2C steels have any burn marks. So now that's stacked out. I mean, this is really like your planetary output. When it goes in the transmission, this engages your 2C clutches on top of your center support, or next to, on top of. We turn the transmission 360 degrees. This is your 4C gear. This plastic piece determines your output shaft end play. They come in multiple thicknesses, and if your output shaft doesn't have enough end play or too much, you change that out and it either tightens it up or loosens it up. This is what seals in this section of the inner drum, and the outer drum seals with an O-ring here to this part of the inner drum. And so that's how you get all of your transfluid pressure into the correct spots through this hub. There. Now, still not as dangerous as coal, but if you mess this up, you are highly likely to probably pinch yourself. Bent, because if you watch any of the live feeds with Jesus and Teardown, you know this is not the funnest thing to take apart, and they like to bend, break, shatter, go everywhere. Have a party, all your clutches invited. So sometimes if you get a really bad transmission that has had a huge problem, this hyperextends, and one of the ways that you can tell is, since it has a slope in it, it's a little hard, but this bleed hole should be perfectly flat. This is another one that likes to get either hyperextended or munched if that one hyperextends, and you'll see it. This one's got a little bit of wear, but you'll see it gets like this snap ring, or this snap ring will literally just go crunch through this whole piston. These are a little tight, so sometimes you just gotta give them a little love. A little love to get them in there. Now we got our underdrives in. We're gonna check our underdrive clearance before we continue on to the overdrives. All right, now we're gonna do our 14 count for our stage 1 plus and our machine top plate for the overdrive. you're gonna make sure that you hear a metal click with each shaft, starting with your underdrive shaft, to know that it is seated properly and through all the overdrive clutches and engaging the underdrive clutches. Again, make sure you get a little metal thunk and you're fully seated. And you get your reverse gear on there. But this plastic piece that is capped on this bearing is going to control your input shaft end play. So this one's got a number on it, and for each number that equates to, each number you go up or down equates to about 5 thou clearance. Okay, so now we got our underdrive, overdrive drum all assembled. We're gonna throw in last little bearing. We're gonna put in some new Teflon strips. So especially with these center gears, they're nice and strong, but if you get the trans a little hot, they like to swell. We got to give these a little bit of extra clearance just to make sure that we don't end up pinching the gear against the center plate or anything like that. Now I'm reassembling the gear side of the pump along with the valve side of the pump, where we're using the stock valves. So this is a 19 plus unit that moves the TCC accumulator from the pump to the valve body. It still has the bore to put the TCC control valve into it, so we have to slide a plug in front of it to seal up the TCC control. Put this little guy in the old TCC accumulator spot, and it's held in by a little clip, and that just seals it up. We're gonna put it into the vacuum tester so that we ensure everything from the valve side seals correctly. That's the one that likes to fail all the time, and then we have to ream the pump out and put one of these Sonax valves in there. This one, you gotta seal it from the backside, so if you just put it on there, it'll have no vacuum. So you have to put a little bit of body weight on it to get her to seal up, and that's phenomenal. So that's a good pump. When you put the pump together, obviously it's pretty fresh and it's clean, and I put a little bit of fluid in it, as I usually do, but there's no fluid in it. And so when you tighten down the first 4 bolts, you want to make sure that the pump gears are spinning freely, so that when you put it on the torque converter, there's no hang-ups, there's no issues, there's nothing snagging, there's no dirt or crud or anything that got in there. It should spin nice and easy. After the first 4 are down, it's right next to the pump gears. It's pretty good. I'll check it after I do all the rest of them, but you're not going to really have a problem. I've never seen it happen. Cool. Cool. All right, well, now that we've got all our sub-assemblies stacked out, we're gonna go ahead and start putting everything in the transmission, take all final measurements on everything, and then send this on its way. So now we have our center support back in the transmission. We're gonna go ahead and test our end play for our output shaft and make sure we're within spec. Perfect. This is your underdrive overdrive drum, and this slides into your center support and 2C, 4C clutches. There we go, seated. Now we're going to measure the end play for the input shaft to make sure that you guys have enough movement within the transmission against the engine and the torque converter. So you're not putting additional load on the bearings and burning shit up. Ooh, 28? I'm going to take some out of that. Couldn't make it through both of them. So this is what I was telling you earlier in the video. This one did not provide or let us have too much end play in the input shaft. So I'm going to tighten that up a little bit. All right, now that we've pretty much got the main assembly entirely Put in the trans, we're gonna give it an air check before we do our valve body and finish tying this trans up. All right, well, we finished up our Stage 1 Plus transmission. If you guys want to follow along and see other builds, there's more on the channel. If you would like to give a like, comment, subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.